Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports with Frank podcast, episode 2 this week, Friday edition, international football. We're going to be covering the Bundesliga that's set to return this weekend with a series of interesting games. We're going to also talk about the news coming from Italy with the Serie A that's also set to restart late in June. And then we're going to be covering the most interesting game, in my opinion, as well as a brief discussion on the impact that this different schedule for different championships will have on the Champions League that for now it seems to be scheduled to return on August 7th. So episode 2, here we go. Here we go. I'm so excited. Finally, football is back this weekend. I can't wait. I can't remember the last time I felt this excited about a German football game, but nonetheless, we're about to start to get back to normal, at least sport-wise. So, quite excited for what's coming ahead. And we're gonna dive in today. We're gonna talk about the most interesting storyline, in my opinion, coming from this weekend, with a very interesting set of games, to be honest. We had the derby between Dortmund and Schalke. We got Lipsia trying to keep up with the other two. They're going to be playing at Freiburg. And then, of course, Bayern that's set to face against Union Berlin. But they will come later. First bit of news, especially coming from Italy. So here we go. It's a very fresh piece of news coming, as we said, from Italy. Yesterday was announced that there's been an approval on a plan from the federation to try and go back to playing in June. June 13th seems to be the date they're aiming for. This is not official yet because the government still has to approve this plan and make sure that everything is under control by the time the games come back. It's something that's pretty encouraging for an Italian fan like me, but at the same time, when you look at the protocol, it seems crazy that it can ever happen because we're talking about the idea of stopping everything and getting the team into quarantine as soon as there is one positive case. Now, this is very different from what's happening in Germany now, and that what seems to be the plan for Portuguese football as well. In this situation, what they do, if there is a positive case in the team, that player kind of becomes injured and is removed from the team. He gets into quarantine, but that doesn't mean that the team will stop playing. In Italy, that seems to be the plan for now, because, as I said, one positive player means the team has to go full into quarantine. That includes players, members of staff, everyone that has been in contact with a single player in the previous days. So to be honest, I don't know if that's going to be the definitive choice they're going to make, but as of right now, I think it's pretty unlikely, if that's the plan, that the Serie A will ever be back. Because let's be honest, with the speed at which this virus spreads, I can't see like safety for the players being enough for them not to be infected, even by chance, especially in cities like Milan or Turin, those northern Italian cities where the virus is still pretty present. So if their idea is to stop the team from competing for 2 weeks, if one player gets infected, then I believe if we do restart, it's only going to be for 2 weeks, 3 weeks max, and I don't see them getting back on track to finish the Serie A by the end of July, like it's been requested by UEFA. So, news, you put it there, you do what you think best with that piece of news. But to be honest, if I have to give my opinion, I don't believe, if that's still the plan, that we're going to have Serie A back at any point this season. And if they don't change their mind, it's going to be tough to have it next year as well, considering that this protocol doesn't seem to be fitting with what the nature of the sport is. Because sport contact like this, you're never going to be able to avoid, to establish social distancing. So if in their minds one player means the whole team has to stop, this is not going to work. But nonetheless, I felt like reporting this because it seems like an important piece of news. We shall see what happens. I believe today or tomorrow. I'm recording this on Thursday, so today or tomorrow there should be a meeting between the higher-ups in the football Italian world and members of the parliament, and we shall see what comes out of that. But I'm not too hopeful. I'm not gonna lie to you. I would like for Juve to be back. Being a Juve supporter, I can't wait to see the team coming back to the pitch. But to be honest, I think it's I don't know, it's kind of a joke. I don't want to be too harsh because everybody's trying their best to keep this going for as long as possible. But at this point, it's becoming pathetic, in my opinion. The ways they're trying around this don't seem to be not good enough. But you need to decide if you want the players to be safe 100%, you don't play football. That's plain and simple what it is. But nonetheless, we reported this. Hopefully, we'll get more information about this next week. But so far, the will to play is there, but I don't think the means that have been used are good enough at the moment. Anyway, moving to more entertaining and fun news. The Bundesliga is back. Finally, some football. We shall see how they work around the virus themselves, but their plan seems to be much better. We had a few cases in the Bundesliga last week during training. There were a couple of players from Cologne, but what they did, they just isolated them completely from the team. As individuals, the team kept training like nothing happened. So that definitely seems like an approach that would allow the games to be played. Bundesliga only has 9 games left until the end of the season. If a few teams have 10, but I believe it's only 2 of them. So I'm definitely more hopeful to see Bundesliga conclude compared to other championships at the moment. So with this first weekend of football, I felt like I'm gonna be trying this segment on the podcast, and I called it a storyline. So I'm basically gonna be picking every week an interesting storyline going into the weekend that I think would be interesting to watch, in terms of development. So I'm gonna start with this weekend, of course, first weekend of football back, and I got a pretty interesting one, which I want to share with you. So here we go, the storyline. Easy one to pick for this week, because in my opinion, the storyline going to the weekend and the rest of the Bundesliga is that for the first time probably since 2013, the Bundesliga is interesting to watch again, because up top there is a big time competition going on. Like 4 teams within 6 points. That's pretty good considering the state of the league in the past 7-8 years. So I'm actually looking forward to see what's going to happen, because you have Bayern on top, 55 points, kind of being dominant since they changed coach back in November, and since then they've been on a ride, and that includes the Champions League when they smashed Chelsea. They still have to play the return leg, but I don't see them having any issue at that point. Then you got Dortmund, it's only 4 points behind, and that's a fun team to watch, not only because Haaland is kind of coming along, coming from the Austrian league. Nobody was really giving him much of a credit, even though he did well in the Champions League. We knew he was going to be a super young and promising player, but at the same time, moving to a bigger league. Personally, I didn't expect him to have the impact that he has. But right now he's been on a run, and it doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. This guy plays with hunger. Like, I don't know, man. I didn't expect him to have this impact on the team right away. But Borussia just he came in and they were like, look, take the keys. This is your car. You run with it. So far it's been dominant. Dortmund has won the last 4 games in the Bundesliga that they played. Of course, they got knocked out of the Champions League, but they're playing against PSG, that many consider to be a favorite for this year, especially after Liverpool's exit. So, I don't think that should count too much towards judging this team, because it's still a pretty young team. They got Sancho, which we all know is going to be special. I hope he stays for Dortmund another season, because this team definitely has the potential to be very, very good, but knowing modern players, I wouldn't be surprised if Sancho moves to England next season. I've been hearing Chelsea, I've been hearing Manchester United, so we shall see what goes on there. But, overall, it's a very fun team. The Witsel Emre Can that came from Juve in January. So even then, this team is young, and at the same time, he has experience, because, some of these players, Witsel, Can, Hummels that came back this summer from Bayern. I mean, those are players that have been playing in big games, you know. So this is a fun mix, and I believe that they definitely have a chance up there to catch up to Bayern and be in the conversation to win the Bundesliga this season. And the same I think about Lipsia, which is only 5 points behind Bayern, 50 points they stand right now. We saw the dominance they could, they showed against Tottenham, and given the fact that Tottenham wasn't the best they could be at that point in the season. No Harry Kane, no Heung-min Son. That was a kind of team that last year got to the Champions League final, and it was more of a lucky one for Tottenham, if you ask me. I mean, the team is good, but I don't think they were anywhere close being in the Champions League final. But at the end of the day, they were in the Champions League final, and they were dominated by Lipsia, which is a team that 10 years ago was in the fifth league in the German, system, and they're now constantly top of the league. Like in the past 4 years, they had 1 year where they didn't qualify for the Champions League, and then they've been second place, third place now. But I'm telling you, like, this team has something to say. I mean, just you got Timo Werner that everybody knows about him, right? Probably gonna be moving away this summer. Here, Liverpool is in talks. There's been talking about Inter, Juve as well. He has a very small release clause compared to the value that he brings to a team. I think it's in the region of 55 million pounds. So a cheap price considering nowadays prices. But I don't think this guy has any less motivation right now because he knows he's moving away. So this team, even taking him away, you got Upamecano, which in my opinion is one of the best young defenders. It doesn't get enough credit, but I can see him become very, very good. And of course, he's French. Like, France needs any more good defenders. And then you got Sabitzer from Austria, incredible player. You got Forsberg that this year has taken a step back, but it's a very, very good player for this kind of team and for this kind of league. And maybe he's not at the center of the project anymore, but it's definitely someone that should be taken into consideration when analyzing this team, because it's been given a lot to this team, especially a couple of years ago when he was one of the best players they had around, and there were talks of him going to big clubs. He stayed at Lipsia, and he's been, with the team. It's been doing very well. And then you got other young players. You got Omo that came from Zagabria, I believe, in January. This guy, I mean, I watched the European Under-21 Championship a few years back, and this guy has been very, very good. Excellent player, in my opinion, and can become very, very good, especially if you compare him to, younger midfielders nowadays. He has that extra, in my opinion, like ability to get in space and to be very efficient even, in the goal area. So I'm very excited to see this team, and I believe that this top three race is the storyline going to the weekend, because you have three teams that can definitely do something like special this season. I mean, Bayern has been winning forever, but don't forget that Bayern was like outside of the top six when they changed coach back in November. So this team has been doing very, very well, and now they're back at the top. But I don't think that's a given that they're gonna be winning, because Borussia and Lipsia are two super young teams with super young, like, the key players are athletic and they have hunger, like they want to win. There are not many players in these two teams that have won before. I mean, thinking about Dortmund, I mean, I can think about Hummels and Emre Can that have won championships before, and yeah, Witzel won in Russia, whatever. I mean, sorry, but I don't consider that being a major championship. But then the other players, Haaland, this guy seems to be wanting everything. Like, this guy strikes me as someone that's never gonna stop until he's the best. I don't know, just the way he runs. There was that play back with in the first leg against PSG when the guy literally runs through the pitch in 5 seconds, and he gets the ball back in his own midfield, and then you can find him in front of goal for PSG. So I'm very looking forward to see what happens with Dortmund, especially having this big game this weekend, the derby against Schalke. And Lipsia, I mean, they're playing Freiburg. They may not be, top of the league, but they're definitely a good team. Like, they've been hanging around the Europa League area of the table, and I'm definitely looking forward to see what they do. And with Bayern, it's very easy to say, Bayern are winning this season because they always win. But you also have to consider this is both an old and a young team. They're very young in defense, which is part of the game that, in my opinion, should be having older players compared to younger players. But nonetheless, they are going to be very, very good for many years. I mean, think about this line. They could potentially have Kimmich, Pavard, Hernandez, and Davis. I mean, this is a line that can last for 10 years for them. Neuer is not going to play forever, but as a keeper, we know keeper play much longer. So I don't see Bayern having an issue keeper wise for a few years at least. And I've been hearing about Ter Stegen. I don't think Barca will never let him go because this guy is insane. And but I don't think Barca has ever had such a good keeper on all these years of winning. Like, if you look at that, like Victor Valdes, one of my favorite players growing up, but I mean, it wasn't the kind of player that you'd be thinking, oh man, this guy is just top three in the world, like never happened. Then they had Claudio Bravo, good keeper, but nothing special. But this guy, Ter Stegen, I mean, if Bayern managed to get him with this line, they will last for a very long time. But then, as I said, they're also old in the way they play. This is the team that plays a very, old style of football, if you may, because it's not one of these teams that are gonna destroy you with a young team going at you. They're very like subtle in what they do, in my opinion. And if you look at the midfield, it's not great, to be honest. I think that's the area of the pitch that they should really improve. To be honest, they improved the defense a lot last summer, making it younger, so I can see them going for midfield this season. But they have a lot of like failed projects. They have Goretzka, Tolisso, Thiago, all a bunch of players that are good. Don't get me wrong, they'll be very good players in many teams, but they're not Bayern level players. And also they have this issue that Robert Lewandowski is getting up in age. He's 32, still dominant in my opinion, as of right now, best number 9 in Europe, but he cannot play forever. And for this kind of striker, the change from being top to being average can be like very quick. I don't want to like be a homer here, but Higuain, he went to Juve after scoring 36 goals in a season, and 2 years after, it was they were trying to ship him away to every possible team. So different kind of player, but I wouldn't be surprised if Lewandowski does this season another season top level, and then it just goes off and falls off a cliff. So I think they need to get better in that way, in the sense of like get into a style of play that can help him stay younger, in a sense, because it's not going to be easy for them to find another striker like him, unless, of course, they do the most classic Bayern thing and they're going to get Haaland from Borussia. But I don't see that happening, especially with Real Madrid. It seems to be interesting, and him, like this Haaland guy seems to be having his own brain. Like, it doesn't seem the kind of player that will do that, in my opinion. It seems like a guy that knows what he has to do and will do exactly that. That he's not going to be influenced by outside, media or people talking to him. So I don't know. For some reason, I don't see him going to Bayern. But anyway, to finish up with Bayern, I believe they will be, very good for a long time if they manage to get better in the midfield and kind of change the way they play to a more modern form of football. Maybe with Gnabry, moving to striker permanently, maybe having this like little front three. Of course, they got Coutinho, which I don't think they will keep this summer. I'm pretty sure it's going to go back to Barca. And there have been talks of them very, very close to Sané from Man City. There have been talks of this for a while. We shall see how that goes. But imagine a front three of Coman, Gnabry, and Sané. I mean, I would take that every day. So this Bayern team is a young team with no style of play, but I'm telling you, it's not a given they're going to be winning this championship, because Borussia and Leipzig are coming, and I believe it's going to be super interesting from here to the end of the season. So here we go. That was the storyline for this week. The race at the top of the Bundesliga. I'm going to be looking very, very closely at this one, because I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And now let's dive into what I think will be the most interesting game of the week. I already talked about this team a bit in the previous section of the podcast, but this weekend, a must-watch game, in my opinion, is the derby between Dortmund and Schalke. I mean, the thing with derbies, they are super cool because of the atmosphere. The fans coming over, especially this one. There is always a lot of like animosity between the two fan bases, and it's nice and entertaining to watch what they do on the stands every time they play. However, as we know, we're not going to have any of that coming up this weekend because, of course, there is no fan allowed to these games. But to be honest, I think the players will play for the fans. Like I can see the players kind of going overboard to give the fans what they can get by being in the stadium. This is a very very heartfelt derby for both of those teams. And even though Schalke has not been doing as well as they thought they would, new coach in the summer, they got some young exciting players from Barcelona. They got Tobido in the January transfer window, and Miranda left back. That hasn't been playing much, but it's a very interesting prospect. We shall see what happens with him if he stays at Schalke or goes back to Barca. But the team was built to be successful. I mean, maybe not right away, but I think they were expecting a Champions League spot. Maybe to get that spot where Mönchengladbach is right now. But considering the points differential right now, I can't see them making to the Champions League. So this game is probably going to be, the most important thing they have to do from now to the end of the season. On the other hand, you have Borussia that I've just talked about. I mean, they want to stay there. They want to get back to the top. They want to make sure that Bayern playing on Sunday. They're going down to Berlin, and having that pressure on of a win from Borussia will definitely help Borussia to kind of try and scare Bayern. It's not always great to play late. Having the other team already knowing they won. I don't know. We shall see what happens there, but I'm pretty sure this game is going to be super interesting because both teams definitely want to win the game for the fans, in my opinion, most of all. But then you also have to consider that Schalke is not out of they are still in the race to get a spot in the Europa League, especially if no national cup is going to be played. There is four teams down there with Wolfsburg, Fribourg, and Hoffenheim that are kind of trying to get that final spot. Schalke is currently 6th place, so if no national cup should be played from here to the end of the season, that 7th spot becomes vital for the Europa League qualification. But you also have to consider that Schalke is not safe, so it's definitely going to be an interesting game. Both teams have points to gain here. Definitely need wins, especially Schalke, considering, as I said, a disappointing season. They would like to kind of top off this season at least with a win in the derby. So that's going to be a very interesting game. And as I said, I suggest that everyone who's listening to this podcast goes in and tunes into this game because, in my opinion, it's going to be fire. So there you have it. That was my game of the week for you. Hopefully you will listen to my advice and tune in because it's going to be fun. And the next part of the podcast, I'm going to be talking a bit about what I think regarding the Champions League coming back in August. As we know, there are some of those leagues already stopped completely. In France, right after the lockdown was announced, they decided that it was time for the Ligue 1 to stop. They completely closed down the old league. They gave PSG the title, and that was it for them. They didn't wait. They didn't have a plan B. They decided to stop, and that was their final decision. Now, that's so far of the biggest league in Europe. That's the only one that's really taken the decision this far. While the other ones seem to be returning to play. We already talked about Bundesliga coming back this weekend. Serie A seems to be scheduled to return on June 13th. And the Premier League still unknown because in England we're still having a very strict lockdown, even though it's been kind of eased in. Lately, it's still quite strong as a lockdown. So I don't see them being allowed to train again anytime soon. And Spain and Portugal, they have different approaches, but both of them seem to be aiming at return. In Spain, they're really training again. In Portugal, I'm pretty sure they have decided to restart the league already. I don't know what the exact date is, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be sooner rather than later. So this only leaves France as the only country that's decided to stop. And now this is an issue because in August, if the Champions League comes back, We have Lyon and PSG. I mean, PSG is already through, but Lyon still has to play the second leg against Juve. And this means that if Juve restarts playing, we're going to be having a team that's been playing for 3 months straight, 2.5, considering the group training, and then another team that hasn't basically played a competitive game since March. And how is that fair? To a team like Lyon, if I were a Lyon supporter, I would be very upset right now, because you're talking about the biggest competition in Europe, and they have a solid chance to make it through, because they won the first game 1-0, and I don't see why they shouldn't be believing in themselves to make it through. But of course, like, the level of preparation, physical readiness of the players will be totally different. And I don't know what the plan is, what UEFA thinks they could do, but I wouldn't be happy if I were a Lyon supporter. Let me tell you that. Because how you expect players to be ready to play a game like that you already know it's gonna be physical, it's gonna be a lot of pressure on both teams, because Juve, they got Cristiano Ronaldo to get to the Champions League, and they haven't yet. And Lyon, they could make it to the quarterfinals, and that's a pretty important step in that team development, because next season they're not even going to be in the Champions League, considering that they haven't qualified for any European league, I believe, this season. So this is a team that not going to be in Europe next year, and they definitely want to go out on a high. So the pressure there is definitely high. And if I were a team like Lyon, I would have to get a fair game in hand. And with Juve being playing for 2 months, from June 13th to August 7th, like, they would definitely be more ready for this game. And I don't know what UEFA's thinking. I don't know what plan they have. Maybe some international friendly games, or maybe like some friendlies within the country to kind of get Lyon back on form. But that's not the same. Like, we know how August football is always different. You start the season, you can see the teams are not yet at their peak, of course, and those teams that play Champions League, they take a while to get on form, because it's a long run. It's not a sprint. So to be fair, I think it's all a mess. I want the Champions League to be back, and I want football to be back, but I want it to be back right. And I don't think, if there is not a chance to give every team a fair opportunity, I don't think that should even be taken into consideration. The idea of coming back with Champions League that doesn't give every team the same amount of chances to make it through, it just isn't fair. And as a football fan, I'm a Juve fan, so if you ask me this question, I'm like, well, let's play, because of course I would have an advantage. But then when I look at this with a football fan, not being biased or anything, it's just not fair. And football is a game that should be fair for everyone, and that should be played at the best level everyone could. So, in my opinion, I don't know what they're gonna decide, but if I were to decide, I would just shut Champions League down 100%, because you still can play national titles and national leagues, because everybody starts from the same point. But you can't have a tournament where one team hasn't played in 3 months, and another team has been playing for 2 months straight and getting to form right for the game. So that's my opinion. We'll see what happens, but I want to share that with you, because it's something I've been thinking about quite a lot lately. So we shall see what happens. But knowing modern football, I wouldn't be surprised if they do restart, because, as we know, money is everything nowadays, and not playing these games would cost UEFA a lot of money. So we'll see. I'm sure we're gonna get more news in the coming weeks, especially the more leagues come back. I think the higher chances for Champions League to return. But until then, I mean, all we can do is kind of hope that the fairest way of doing things, prevails. But I'm not that confident as of right now. And there it is. That's today's podcast. I hope everybody enjoyed. I had quite a lot of fun going through this weekend of games, trying to figure out what the best games to suggest you were. And I hope you had fun as much as I did. And I will see you all next Monday for an episode that's going to be dedicated to the NBA. I'll be giving awards away. So the regular season awards that were supposed to be given in June, if the season doesn't restart, I'll be telling you who I think should be winning each of these awards. And then maybe we'll talk a bit about the NFL with some of the most intriguing teams, in my opinion, going to next season. Until then, stay safe. This has been Francesco. This is the Sports with Frank podcast. See you on Monday.